Everyone to today's Te Hoe Matua City Strategy and Delivery meeting. Please let me or the Democracy Advisor know if you intend to leave the meeting. Morning tea will be 10:30. Now join me for karakia. Whakatakatiho ki te uru, whakatakatiho ki te tunga, kia mā kina ki uta, kia mā taratara ki tai, e hik ake ana te ate kura, he tio, he huka, he huhu, ti he Māori ora. Any apologies? Go.
No.
Yes. Yeah.
Oh, yes.
Conflict of interest declarations. Anyone? Items not on the agenda. There are no items on the agenda. Confirmation of last minute, and can I get a mover for the motion? Andrea, Councillor Crampton. All set. Now I put to the vote. There are no items on the agenda. Now we move to general business. Funding option for independent consumer advocacy group. Oh, cool. I think we have two public participants. And first, I will invite Rob Sister, individual, to speak to agenda item 2.5.
So he has 5 minutes.
Rob, you have 5 minutes. That includes question time. The floor is yours.
Thank you. Kia ora tātou. Thank you very much for the chance to talk to you about private dog parks. It's a new concept, and I think it's a really essential complementary need in Wellington, and I'll quickly explain. I didn't know I'd get into this. A friend's dog was attacked, 6 dogs, nearly died, $6,000 later. The dog's okay, but it's scared of every other dog. It's not safe to go out in public, and definitely not safe to go to public dog parks. So I thought, well, we can do something about this. I've got a bit of land, and I've created a private dog park that's safe. I'll introduce you to Sarge here. Sarge was a dog I met on Monday night. He was chained to a pole for 5 years. He's just been rescued. He's got major behavioural issues. He's scared of other dogs and will attack them. He can't go to public dog parks. He comes to our public park, our private park. He's happy. The owners say it's the only place they can bring him. It nearly brought a tear to my eye, actually, when I met them. So reactive dogs are really common in Wellington, we've discovered, but they're not the only dogs that have special needs. We have a lot of greyhound racing dogs that come here. They can't go to public parks. Landsar train their dogs. We have the police breeding dogs come. The bomb dogs from the airport come out. There are a lot of dogs. We're completely booked up weeks in advance. So we've created a safe, controlled place people have agency. One at a time bookings, that's the key. No other dogs, no other people, and it's peaceful. I've got a background in environmental and conservation management. We've put all our profit into fencing, double fencing, planting hundreds of natives of trees. Importantly, we keep our stock free on the outside in the car park as a bellwether for our neighbours. So if dogs attack our stock, we'll know. 3,000 dogs, not a single issue yet. We've also retired our paddock from stream grazing to help the Porirua Harbour. So that's an environmental plus. We've got rules, 6 pages of rules and information, 4 dogs maximum. We have half an hour close time between each booking, so dogs can never meet. Our heavy emphasis has been on barking. You're not wanted here if you're an excessive barker. There's a copy provided of our rules for you. We've discovered that people that pay are very responsible people and dog owners. We've also discovered that it's created a culture where people appreciate the peace and come here and they protect that peace. 2 of our neighbours, the 2 closest ones, love seeing it, having happy people come out to enjoy our valley, and they've never had an issue with barking. So our feedback generally is 5-star, thank heavens, it's safe, low anxiety, owners are really responding to that. 90% of our visitors are women coming to feel safe. So we really think that dog parks, private dog parks, well controlled like this, need to be encouraged, not regulated. And in fact, just a couple of days ago, the ex-head of SPCA in Wellington, Dr. Steve Glassy, who's written dog policy with the council, said exactly that. Please refrain from unreasonable restrictions and encourage these facilities. So talking to R7, the noise rule, we think lumping daycare, dog parks and boarding kennels together is wrong because there are different sound propositions. What we have discovered, and this is really important, we didn't realise this, is that dogs that come to private dog parks are only with their owners, and dogs say no, they don't bark. Dogs in public parks are anxious, they're reacting to things, they bark, pack bark, very different. Our park's been heavily monitored by council officers and found no breaches. In fact, 2 weekends ago, I was fencing all weekend nearby, and I kept a survey. In 16 hours, I heard 5 barks. Not a noise issue here. Also, dogs overheat in summer. The 7 p.m. is just starting to cool down. There are some breeds that can't exercise during the day. So we think that if you're going to close private dog parks at 7 p.m. at night, we think really you should be closing all dog parks, public and private together. In Auckland, there are over 50 private dog parks now, no special rules, 3 in the Hutt Valley, I'm the first here in Wellington. So what I'm really trying to say is that we're into solving problems, not making them. It's a compelling, we've shown it's a massive community need. We support public dog parks by taking inappropriate dogs out of the system, the ones that cause council the problems, attacks, aggression. It's at no cost to the council. I would really encourage you to help us. Please come and visit. We've got an open invitation. Bring a dog. Tony, you can bring your cat. Please come and support us. Thank you.
Thank you. I will allow a few questions and begin with Deputy Mayor McNulty.
So just quickly, Rob, the noise conditions of your property relate to you being zoned for large lot residential through the district plan. When that district plan change happened, were you notified directly and did you have a chance to consult on the large lot residential and the conditions that come with it?
Thanks, Ben. I only found out that my land had been rezoned because of the dog park. It's had really big impacts. I don't believe our land should have been rezoned. It's not appropriate. It's very steep. There's no services. We still farm it. It's large. It doesn't make sense. It's like an island that sits there. It's caused encroachment issues to come into play. We farm that area, as does everybody else. It doesn't make sense. So yeah, that rezoning's caused a lot of issues and we were never notified about it and the previous owner was never notified about it. It's been a real shock.
Cool.
Yeah.
Thank you so much. So an amendment is coming from Councillor Randall. You can see that one later on. Thank you for now.
Thank you very much.
Next we have Helen Ritchie from the Civic Trust speaking to 2.3, the notice of motion of revocation. Feel free to sit or... As you well know, Helen, you have 10 minutes as an organization. Your time is starting soon.
Oh my goodness. A full council. I haven't sat around a full council table for a while. Kia ora koutou katoa. My name is Helen Ritchie. It's a pleasure to be here and to have this opportunity to talk with you. I just want to say that the Wellington Civic Trust is absolutely stoked that this council, you, councillors, and Poiwi are poised to save the City to Sea Bridge with a notice of motion to revoke the demolition resolution of December 24. As you know, the Civic Trust brought a judicial review case against the council last December, but we stopped the demolition nearly a year ago. It was to start, and it's not in your reports actually, so the new councillors perhaps don't know, the demolition, the resolution said that the demolition would have started in January of this year. We stopped that. We stopped that by an agreement with the council that they would not pursue demolition any further until our case was filed and heard in the court. We are absolutely delighted that the Mayor and councillors are now taking the lead at last on this. We want to thank those councillors who pursued this vigorously last triennium, and we are very pleased with the new councillors' resolve. This safe, iconic bridge, with its special sculptured architecture, is unique in the world. Some of you may not yet appreciate that, but it is. And it is recognised as such, and it should be protected as such. But today we invite those Greens in particular, Councillor Foon and Rogers, who during the election committed to support saving the bridge, one by email, which I have here, and the other by a question that I raised in Aro Valley, witnessed by Afnan and the Mayor. Councillor Rogers was keen to support saving the bridge. He said, I now want Councillors Foon and Rogers to encourage their Green colleagues and Poiwi into a unanimous vote today at Council. That would be a great start for this Council. Today it is time to thank many Wellingtonians. The Civic Trust, which I chair, led the campaign, I suppose. Sylvia Allen, who's in the back with one of the T-shirts, was my partner in crime, my trusty comrade. She held the glue between the Trust and the Save the City campaign, and she did an amazing job. There are many people who in Wellington want the bridge to be saved. We also have to thank the media. Julie, Tom, Harriet, Lindsay, Catherine the court reporter, 2ZB, RNZ and social media. And also Simon Wilson, who reports for the New Zealand Herald, an old mate who actually was a Wellingtonian, who went to Onslow College. Let me stress, there was nothing fortuitous or good fortune about the decision that you are about to embark on today. It wasn't a fluke. It isn't a fluke, despite what one media seemed to imply. It wasn't by chance. It was by good design of our campaign, by careful research, by deliberate action, by lots of lobbying, by good hard work, and by making sure that you have, and we have, the council today that is going to revoke the decision to demolish the City to Sea Bridge. You will know that we filed in the court on September 17th of December 2024, and on the 19th of December we had to work really fast after the decision of the council, although we were prepared. On the 19th of December, we came to an agreement, a court agreement, that the council would take no action to demolish the bridge and that the council would not enter into any contract to demolish the bridge. That was nearly a year ago. And for me, this hasn't been a fluke. This was 9 months of hard work, full-time, pro bono, trying to educate a barrister on the vagaries of Wellington City Council. But it's also been 30 years for me because I chaired the Civic Centre project. And then from 2013, it was obvious to me as a city councillor that it was the beginning of the intense neglect of the Civic Centre and the bridge. And from then on, I have been heavily involved, as have many others. And I have to stress that this has been a campaign of many Wellingtonians. Today we congratulate the mover and the council. We look forward to a unanimous decision. We look forward to, actually I have in mind Councillor Foon's, in December 10 debate, Councillor Foon stood up and said, "This is not just a bridge, it is an experience." Today she has the opportunity to support that experience. Today, you, Mayor and councillors, you will and can take the lead. That's a great start for this council. You will do good for this city. You will save the City to Sea Bridge. We urge you to make and to take a unanimous decision to revoke the demolition. And finally, I just want to say to former Chair, Councillor Tim Brown, who sent me an email prior to the consultation saying, "Gone by lunchtime." I want to say to him today, saved by Christmas. Thank you. I'm happy to take a couple of questions or whatever, if there are any.
Thank you for making it fun at the end. And who we have Councillor Curvett.
Councillor, sorry.
Me. Thanks, Helene, and to your group. You've done a wonderful effort on the smell of an oily rag.
Yes.
So, but there's been some criticism of your campaign, that it was, a bad faith campaign, brought up a lot of other information, and it was costing Wellington, holding us back. I mean, what's your view on that from a democracy perspective?
Oh, well, I wasn't. That criticism didn't reach me, didn't reach us in terms of bad faith. It wasn't bad faith. It was a campaign for Wellington. In terms of democracy, now, I've said this before. This decision should never have had to go to the court. This is where democracy is. This is where democracy is with the people. It's not in the courts. We should never, ever have had to take this issue to court because it's common sense. It's absolutely common sense. Some public member came up to me yesterday and said, sanity has prevailed. I wasn't sure what she was talking about at first, but she was talking about the bridge and the fact that you are poised to save the bridge. We have democratic rights. We have rights to the courts as well. But the cost for us, the emotional cost, the time cost, and the financial cost, and the need to fundraise to go to court was enormous. And I have to say again that Sylvia and the campaign, Save the Campaign Committee, which was separate from the trust, made an enormous effort. And so did Wellingtonians. Any of you who are on Facebook will have seen the enormous effort that went in there. Thank you.
Thank you.
Quick question from Councillor Tifambaka.
It's actually really just a statement. Thank you very much to the Trust for all the effort you've put in on behalf of Wellingtonians, because I personally think you've done a great job. You shouldn't have to be brought to that. And also I think we need to acknowledge a thanks to the CEO as well, who could have actually still demolished the bridge had he not chosen to delay it. I think the effort you guys have put in is just a great reflection on how democracy needs to work.
Thank you very much.
Cool, thank you. That was not a question, but we let it go, and thank you for your time.
I just want to, if I could just say thank you to you, Councillor Abdul Rahman, for having the courage and the wit and the knowledge to be able to get through the council processes to get this motion on the table today. Thank you.
Thank you. Have a good day.
Thanks very much.
Now we move to the general business and funding options for independent consumer advocacy group. Please welcome Margot Ray to introduce the report.
Kia ora koutou. Thank you for your time this morning. I will keep the introduction relatively brief because I'm aware you have quite a full agenda. So the report today in front of you that has been prepared in response to a committee request for advice on how to fund an independent water advocacy group and also how the group might have influence. Earlier this year in August, Council took a decision agreeing to provide financial support to an independent advocacy group. And as I mentioned to you at the briefing on Tuesday this week, for this report I have had to take a number of assumptions around the group, given that, as far as I am aware, it doesn't exist. So, and those assumptions around the purpose, the size and scale, the operating model, do have an impact on the funding that might be, or the financial support that might be required. In terms of the main material in this paper, the funding, there are two options available to you on how to provide that financial support. So you could choose to provide that via a community grant, or you could choose to make that via an annual plan resolution. So that's to amend this financial year annual plan, especially if funding was required to be provided before March 2026. And so on that, I will leave that there and Chair, hand back to you. Thank you.
Does anyone have questions? Councillor Randall.
I note the recommendation in the report is just to receive the information. So are you asking us for a decision about funding this?
Thank you. No, I'm not, because the request in August was to provide advice on how it could be funded. So that is what the paper is providing.
Councillor Chang.
Thanks very much, Margot. I'd just like to ask you for your view. If this was not funded and this group was not actually financed by the council, do you think we have adequate safeguards or other avenues for the public to actually come to us, exactly the same as what other people do about Wellington Water, to discuss their issues and to concern those? Do you think that's enough for this group?
I think as we head into the relationship with Te Aki Wai, there are a number of things that we need to test in this new operating model we're stepping into as a region. And so the answer I give is with as much confidence as what we know today and without being able to forecast into the future what might happen. What we have done is build in as many belts and braces around our communities and protecting our communities as possible. So that is through, for example, the customer charter. It is also through the statement of expectations, and it is also ensuring that we have a good relationship with the Commerce Commission, because they too have a role in protecting our communities and individuals in the community. And then the other thing that Wellington City Council has pushed for in the region, and that has been agreed to, is to ensure that Te Aki Wai are a member of the Utilities Disputes Limited, so that there is an independent body available in the need of assistance with resolving disputes.
Mayor Little.
Thanks, Margot. Just on the looking at the paper, is there a tension between the council's power to make a grant for particular activity or objectives on the one hand, and the fact that the concept here is an independent advocate, and I'm assuming the conceptual independences of both the council and Te Aki Wai, and no doubt other stakeholders as well. I ask it in the context of the council still has a duty or responsibility to ensure that any funds that it grants, that it has raised, particularly from ratepayers, actually achieves a purpose, and achieves a purpose consistent with the council's own objectives.
Thank you, Mayor. Yes, I absolutely think there is that tension. I think it's the desire for the group to be independent interpreted as of council. I think that is where the tension does lie because, as you point out, when we provide funding, whether it's through an annual plan resolution or through a community grant, we are beholden to ensure that our community's rates are being used to their best possible means. So if there was to be a funding provided without ensuring there is sufficient belts and braces around the use of that funding, I do think that opens council up to risk, yes.
Councillor Osborne.
Thank you. Thanks, Margot. My question actually just follows on from the Mayor's. I asked in the workshop last week if you were aware of any examples elsewhere, not necessarily in the water sector, but potentially in the water sector, of other independent advocacy groups that had been established through funding via essentially a state grant. At the time, you said you weren't. I was just wondering if you maybe had found any, or you're still on that same.
I haven't done any further investigation since our last conversation.
Councillor Randall.
So I just want to get clear on what we're deciding today. What this report really is about is to receive some information, and the actual decision on whether or not any advocacy group would or would not be funded is actually going to be made, say, as part of the annual plan and such like. This is just information to say what it would cost and what it might look like.
So this report is providing you information so that you know the choices you have. As I mentioned in the briefing earlier this week, that if you wanted to take a decision, then that would be via an amendment today to actually pursue that decision. So the previous council has already taken a decision to provide funding support. So it is about how that support could be actioned is really where the next step is, and that decision is with yourselves.
Councillor Compton.
Thank you, Margot. So I see in the Q&A that the Utilities Disputes Limited is an independent and free service for consumers. If we fund an independent consumer advocacy group, is there not a risk that we're essentially duplicating advocacy?
I don't believe so, only because as far as I understand with UDL, so that is focusing on disputes, whereas advocacy, if we think about it in its generic sense, would be perhaps to focus on affordability and to advocate to, for example, the Commerce Commission or the Te Aki Wai board themselves or to yourselves, to ensure that the future of water, the cost of water remains as affordable as possible, or perhaps activities around stormwater, for example, whereas UDL would not step into that territory. So I don't believe that advocacy and UDL would be a duplicate. If the advocacy group were asked to do any kind of representation around disputes, that's where I think duplication would kick in.
Thank you. I'll just follow on from that. So essentially, we could put a provision into an advocacy group that they don't sit into the dispute space, so that there's no longer a risk of duplication.
Absolutely.
Thank you, Margot. Is there a mover for the motion? Do we hold on? Do you want to speak to? Is there any debate? Councillor Randall is seconding.
Yes, so I'm seconding this and I'm supporting this. I thank the officers for pulling this information together, and I just wanted to note that the setup of Te Aki Wai Metro Water is probably the biggest decision that is going to come through this triennium. And we're going to go into essentially a new era of water services. And amongst all of the setup of this, where Te Aki Wai is deliberately put at arm's length the council, our influence as a council is deliberately reduced. I also observed that even when we had in theory, strong influence on Wellington Water, that still didn't stop some very bad practices being introduced into our services, what was revealed after officers and the previous council efforts over months and years to dig out to find that Wellington Water wasn't efficient and was really had some very poor practices in contracting. And so I just want to note that going into this new era, we will have less influence, and that's deliberate. It's government policy. The idea of a consumer advocacy group came up to really protect the interests of our consumers, and we need to keep supporting this. And so I do think the officers were pulling it together. The decision as to whether or not we do that needs to go into the mix of what we will want to do, both through the annual plan process and through the triennium plan that we're working on. And so I do want to encourage members to support the receipt of this information that acknowledges the work of officers, and also that it acknowledges the concern that I hope this council has is equally matches the concern the previous council has, that we end up with a better service for water, more cost-effective service. And when I mean a better service, I mean it from the point of view of the consumer, not in terms of the contractors and that sort of stuff. I don't mind if they have a harder time because they've milked it, some of them it seems. And so we need to be sure that the value for money is passed on to consumers, and that we end up with a more efficient organisation. So this is one mechanism, and we're yet to make a decision on this, but I do like to have this option here. So I encourage you to support this.
Councillor Ridger.
Yeah, I guess similar to Councillor Randall, just wanted to highlight that we are essentially in the process of establishing a monopoly that will be very arm's length from the decision-making abilities that we have, as already highlighted by Councillor Randall. And I think what came through clearly for me in the report is that it is a bit chicken and egg in terms of establishing an organisation with independence. We don't know how much money they need. We don't know what sort of work they would be interested in doing. And so my support of just this recommendation, as opposed to producing an amendment that would actually fund the organisation, is essentially saying, I think the status quo of an organisation that may establish itself, create a business case and come to us and seek funding is probably an appropriate avenue to go down next.
Councillor Osborne.
Thank you, Chair. Look, similar to Councillor Rogers, really, I'm very happy to receive this report, receive the information in it. I take Councillor Randall's point that I think establishing Te Aki Wai is quite possibly the most significant issue that we will face this term. And I really would love to see a consumer advocacy group advocating for Wellingtonians. I think that's in this massive decision that we are, this massive transition that we are seeing in our, I guess, our civic settings, it's really important to get that sort of advocacy. I do, though, want to flag that I have some quite significant concerns that if we are to fund this advocacy group, it's difficult to see how it could be viewed by other institutions without a degree of cynicism about its independence. So I just want to put that on the table. Happy to receive this information, but I think that's an important issue we'll need to address. Thanks.
Councillor Chang.
If I look at the last triennium, and I think of all the people who actually wrote into me to say that they had some issues with problems that they're experiencing, one of the main ones was always regarding water. And so they felt that people, the residents weren't being listened to. So when we had water shortages, when we had leaks in the streets, they weren't being listened to. They would report it, and then seemingly nothing would happen. So I'm very, very enthusiastic about getting people to have an avenue to actually report things and to come to us or to come to the organisation and to say and to feel that they are being listened to, that their concerns are actually there. Whereas, and so that's why I think that having an advocacy group is actually good, because it gives people an avenue to do this. But should we actually be funding it? I understand all the issues that's been brought up by council, and I feel that I don't want to get into a position where we're ending in a spiral of paying excessive cost for funding these groups, but I do want to give some sort of support. So is the best way then to actually have these people come to us as councillors, as ward councillors, and then we can ensure that we actually address their issues? So I think that, yes, we'll receive this report, but I have a lot of concerns about whether we actually fund these. Thank you.
Next, Mayor Litton.
Thank you, Chair. I think the best way to ensure the greatest accountability is to make sure there's maximum information about the organisation that's being held to account. The Wellington City Council is a shareholder in Te Ake Wai, also as a member of the Partners Committee that has a level of oversight. As others have said, there is a reason why Wellington City Council can't exercise some sort of majority right, because that would create obligations under the Companies Act and create liabilities for us that we don't necessarily want, and would defeat kind of partly the purpose of Te Ake Wai Metro Water anyway. I think it's good to have this information to sort of flesh out the concept as it was proposed earlier in the year, but I think there's still more work to do to consider whether the best way to get the best possible information, not about the individual consumer issues, but about the systemic issues that will surround water pricing, the operation of the water network, whether this is the best approach to do that, or whether, even as a shareholder and a part constituent of the new entity, whether the City Council can do its own work in terms of generating information and providing that advocacy. In the end, as a council representing our residents, we are an advocate anyway, and I am keen, as the debate goes on, to see what the kind of putative independence will add to work that we could otherwise do.
Councillors, 5 people, councillors already spoken support. Unless you have opposing views, we will go to right of reply. But if you have opposing views, I'm happy to give you an opportunity. Councillor Tifambaka.
Well, I am in support, but I just want to point out that I think the real issue is here. Well, no, I think we need to receive the information and have it as an option, but I do point out that unless the consumer advocacy group has some power within the statement of expectation, we are just doing a box-ticking exercise and making people feel good that we're supposedly giving them options. I do have concerns that in the setup of Te Ake Wai, the council doesn't have much ability to change things in itself. So for a consumer advocacy group to be able to come up with issues and then not have them resolved is not necessarily a good thing either. So I do think we should receive it. We should still have it in its option, but we need to build more into the agreement before it would make it worthwhile to actually establish the group.
Thank you. Right of reply, Pui Holden.
No, just to say happy to support the paper, and obviously there's a bit of a debate to be had, and we'll have that in the fullness of time.
Fantastic. I now put the motion which has been moved and seconded. Those in favour, please press 1. Opposing 2. I declare the motion carried. 2.2 agenda item, significant projects Q1 status report. Please welcome Jeffrey Go to introduce the report. And Jenny, Officer Jenny.
Thank you, Chair. Kia ora, Councillors Pauihi. So we did have a briefing on this just the other day, but I'll do a very short introduction for those who couldn't make the briefing or for those tuning in online. So this is the first presentation of a standalone significant projects report. It has been pulled out from being an embedded part of the quarterly report as it was in the previous triennium to give it a dedicated forum for review and questions around our significant projects. And this is part of an effort to lift the level of engagement and oversight that you have around our significant projects this triennium. So the report is effectively a noting report. It's to receive the information. No decisions on projects are expected or required. What you're seeing in the report in terms of statuses is really the information aimed primarily at the project governance of each project. So risks and issues driving AMBER projects will be under the management of individual SROs and the project boards. But this is providing you that full visibility and transparency around where our projects are at, what information our project governance and project boards are receiving and managing. And as noted in the briefing, I think the important point to note is that risks and issues requiring your decision or your decision making will be raised to you at the point in time when they're relevant for you to make decisions on them. We won't be waiting for this report to be raising issues that you need around significant projects that require your attention and decision. Just briefly in terms of the content of the report, there's one project currently reporting a red status, that is the Golden Mile, and you've received a report on the issues driving that back in November. Other than that, there's one other project that has moved from a green status to an amber status, and that's the Harbour Quays bus project. My understanding is that central government work on roads of national significance has necessitated some additional work on the business case on that project, and that's caused some delay to plan consultation and additional work. But other than that, happy to take questions. I'll be able to support mostly with questions around process and reporting questions, and we have some officers in the room who will be able to support also in terms of questions on specific projects.
Thank you, Officer Jeffrey. Does anyone have questions? Councillor Calvert.
Can you explain why you do not provide in the report? You've got key issues and risks. Are you able to provide us with what are the critical risks and issues and the ones, and also high? Because I'm not sure what, I wonder why you've just lumped them as just issues, but I really am interested to know what are the critical issues and risks and what are the high risks and issues.
Yes, so I guess the ask in what we've presented in the report is for projects and SROs to summarise the material risks and issues for you. We have full risk registers which classify risks around critical, high, moderate, low. We haven't listed out the specific risks that are critical and high, but I would expect the risks and issues that are summarised in the report are those that reflect critical and high risks.
So is there a way that we can see what is the summary of the, as of this date, 31st of October, can we see the summary of the critical and high risks and issues as, because I know you produce that information, so can we get that information?
Yes, if you would like it. I suppose what I'm saying is that the express purpose of the report and how it's been drafted is to draw out the key elements of those critical and high risks for you. But yeah, we could provide the full. Yeah,
just like you provide to ELT. If we could have that would be good.
Thank you. Your point noted. And online, Councillor Fuan.
Elder Tato, can you hear me okay?
We can't hear you, Councillor Fawn.
My question is around the Michael Fowler Centre. Just to understand, have the government earthquake-prone direction had any impact on the position that council officers are going to take regarding remediation?
Through you, Chair. So we will be coming back to Council or Committee in the new year with an update on Michael Fowler Centre, and that will be a result of us undertaking quite a lot of assessments with engineers, builders as to what potential schemes there are for the remediation of the Michael Fowler Centre. All of that work has been considered within the context of the proposed changes to the legislation that the government announced earlier this year.
Right. Thank you. One more question regarding the sludge minimisation project. When will we get a more fulsome and thorough update on how that is? Thank you for the update in the paper. It is very fulsome, but I just want to get a more whole look at the whole status and progress.
Thank you, Councillor. So as Jeffrey's noted, part of the system for bringing information to you on projects includes substantial project briefings for each of the significant projects. And I think we've advised you that, for example, HUP 2 will get 4 briefings a year, and they've been scheduled in. We're proposing 3 briefings for sludge, and the first one is scheduled for March the 5th.
Awesome. Thank you.
Great.
It's all from me, Chair. Thank you.
Thank you. Next, Councillor Roger.
Yeah, mine was just a follow-up to question 13, which was around the cost escalation for Golden Mile. I guess my further question is, if the cost escalation, which is inclusive of both Work Package 1 and 2 and the Three Waters Must Do, was included in the forecast figure, why were those original budgets not included in the budget figure?
Council, we may need to come back to you on that if that's all right. We'll have to just go and get some advice from the project manager and come back to you on that, please. Okay. Thank you.
Councillor Osborne.
Thank you, Chair. My question actually follows up from Councillor Foon's question, and forgive me, I ought to probably know the answer to this myself, but when is the reform to the earthquake legislation? What's the government's sort of schedule they've put out for passing that reform?
Through Mr. Chairman, I believe there will be an announcement very shortly on that before Christmas, is my understanding. But it is up to government, of course, to do so. But the intention, I thought, was to introduce before Christmas.
Have they given an indicative timeline of when?
I don't have anything scheduled. No.
Third mover for the motion. I think. Thank you, Jeannie and Officer Jeffrey. Are there any? Yep. Thank you, Councillor Arubai. Do you want to speak to?
I reserve my right to speak, thanks.
Councillor Osborne, you want to second and speak to?
I'll reserve my right.
Is there any debate? Okay. It's yours.
Yeah, well, I think this is really important. I mean, we received the information, and that's great. And I appreciate the officers of pulling this information together for us. But I think critically, there is we shouldn't have to join the dots in the report. You look at each individual project, and you can see key issues, but you can't see across the big picture. So I'm really looking forward to this report evolving, so that we could take a summary look at what are the critical issues running across all the projects, what are the issues that have already been defined, so that we, as the Governing Council, can understand what might impact on decisions that we're making right here and now. If we've got another project coming on board, what are some of those issues affecting projects already in stream? Because we need to make sure we've got holistic information, especially at this time when we know this organisation is at capacity level, when we know funding is a critical issue in itself, and we know we have to get our rates more affordable. So I'm looking forward to having more information coming out in a way that we don't have to join the dots as much, and that we can see a more fulsome summary report coming through. But in the meantime, thank you to officers for the information they provided to date. Thank you.
Deputy Mayor McNulty.
Yeah, just very quickly, thank you for the work that's gone into this report. I can reflect, just having had 3 and a bit years, that had we had this reporting 3 years ago, we would have been in a much stronger position. So, we can't get to perfect. Perfect is a ongoing continuous work program, I'm sure James will tell us, but we are doing much better than we were, and I just reflect on, had this type of reporting been there as we laid into the issues of the town hall, we would have had chances to get in there and really interrogate what was going wrong earlier. So yes, there is more to do, but I'm also very pleased to get this level of reporting and this critical risks put on the table, because it is a improvement, a demonstrable one, over the 3 years and the time that I've been in this institution.
Right of reply. I now put the motion, which has been moved and seconded, for vote. Those in favour, please press green. No, 2. I declare the motion carried. Now we move on to item 2.3, notice of motion of revocation, CT2C Bridge. I will move this motion, then following the motion being moved, there will be the opportunity for members to ask questions of officers. Following the questions, I will call for a seconder and we move into debate. Should I go? Yeah. Further on in James.
Kia ora koutou. This report reflects information relevant to the notice of motion for the revocation of a previous resolution related to the Capital E and City to Sea bridge options decision. I'll take the report as read. Back to you, Chair.
Any questions? Deputy Mayor McNulty.
Yeah, just one for Andrea Reeves, I think. Given there is likely now a substantive saving that's going to come through from the need to not demolish the bridge, the $83 million sludge-shaped hole, I just want to get an idea of, is that likely to be funded through the IFF outside the council's balance sheet, or is it looking more like that is within existing limits and there's essentially an allocation here that we can probably make against that hole?
So we haven't got any firm answers in that space around how the sludge budget will be met. At this point, we have a council resolution to note that it would be funded out of debt unless we can find an alternative source of funding, and we are working actively on that source of funding. So ultimately, debt is the backstop for that.
Councillor Roger.
Yeah, the next actions in the report state that officers would bring advice to this committee in February and that no work would be done in the interim period. What would happen if this notice of motion of revocation was not brought? Would you still be bringing advice in February and would nothing happen?
Through the chair, that's correct, yeah.
Thank you.
Councillor Osborne.
Thank you, Chair. I appreciate it's, you might have to make a bit of a calculated guess here, but I'm just wondering how much staff time do you think has gone into processing and managing this notice?
This particular notice, not a great deal, I would say. Just the processing of the notice itself. Is that what you're referring to, Councillor?
And in terms of the preparing of the advice?
Not a great deal.
Okay.
Any further questions? Thank you, Officer Farzad and James. It is my pleasure moving this notice of revocation for 3 reasons. The decision Council made in December 2024 was based on earthquake-prone building system that no longer exists. The government's reform issued on 29th of September 2025 fundamentally changed how buildings like the City to Sea Bridge and Capital E are accessed. Officers have advised that new information and new options are now being developed in light of this reform, and the further advice will be brought back in February. Given that a regulatory basis for our earlier decision has materially shifted, it is appropriate that we revoke the decision. The second reason, there is also clear public interest and clarity about the future of the bridge. Many of you during the election campaign have seen how the community asking for revocation of that notice. Even this council has gone to court because of the public interest. I think we must and we should try our best to give clarity to our community in going forward. Again, financially, it is the right thing to do as well. To demolish the City to Sea Bridge cost, currently we have in the long-term plan about $38 million. And now that is not the case. The bridge needs a bit of love, capital a bit of strengthening. That means we will be making some savings. Most importantly, this new council under the new mayor, when we promise, we deliver. The mayor during election time said that he will look at it after election if circumstances change. That's what we are doing. We are taking the lead. We are giving instruction. We are giving guidance to our council officers where we want to be heading. And that's what we're doing. I hope you all supported this direction. And now I invite you for a debate. And do I have a seconder before that? Councillor Young, do you want to speak to it?
Yes, thank you. So
I would just like to say our city has seen an enormous amount of demolition in my quite long lifetime, but even more so in recent years because of issues around seismic problems. Not everyone loves the bridge, but I think everyone would agree it is a far better solution to crossing, I think it's State Highway 1, than a pedestrian crossing. I'd just like to thank the Civic Trust for their advocacy and sheer grit in fighting the proposed demolition, and all the Wellingtonians who supported the relentless campaign to stop the demolition. And of course, my fellow councillor, Councillor Abdul Rahman. I'm reading his name very carefully to get it right. Wellingtonians are a pretty phlegmatic bunch until they get really upset. They got really upset about the waterfront fencing, Begonia House, but possibly most of all about the City to Sea Bridge. And this amendment provides clarity to the officers and for Wellingtonians, partly because of the government's signalled changes to seismic requirements, which we believe will be legislated in mid-2026. The next big decision will come in February when we look at what will be done with the former Capital E building, and I'm optimistic that we'll come up with a really good solution that Wellingtonians will realise that this council is a council that is going to be doing positive things for Wellington, which will be welcomed, I think, by almost everyone. I would just ask the Green councillors to live up to the original principles of their party and be aware of the environmental implications of demolishing this bridge. And other than that, I would just like everyone, it would be great if we could pass this unanimously, Green councillors in particular. Thank you.
Councillor Osborne.
Wow, it seems appropriate that I go next after that, doesn't it? Look, I actually really quite like the City to Sea Bridge. I think it's iconically Wellington, and as we're all aware and have been told this morning, many of our residents really love it. In fact, as Councillor Young pointed out to me, my wife's grandmother's poetry is actually concreted into the bridge. Whenever I was asked about the bridge on the campaign, I always responded to say that I was very open to options to save it, and I certainly am. So I'm pleased that the government has announced its intention to amend the law so that we could potentially save the bridge. I would note that that law is not yet passed. What I'm a little less pleased about, I suppose, is the process that has led us here today. I wasn't a councillor last term, but I understand it was the reasons the previous council voted to demolish the City to Sea Bridge revolved around two issues: cost and risk. This was a decision that had implications for millions and millions of dollars, significant sums of money that, of course, we all know come from our residents. It was also a decision that had to weigh up the risks of a bridge collapsing onto a major arterial route in the aftermath of an earthquake. These are very significant issues. More than significant enough that you might expect an experienced councillor who would possibly want to give his fellow councillors plenty of time to understand his reasons for wanting to revoke this decision. Maybe even work with officers to provide his fellow councillors with some advice about the impact this revocation might have. Unfortunately, this did not happen. And like I know a few of you have, I've been wondering why that is. Why didn't our colleagues share any information about this revocation before asking for our signature? Well, I think I found the answer. And I think that answer is written in paragraphs 17 and 20 of this report. Officers, as we all know, have given us an undertaking not to act on the decision that we're being asked to revoke prior to briefing us in February on future options for the bridge. And they will do so regardless of how we vote today. The plan this morning was to pause any work on the bridge until we consider its future options in February. The plan this evening will look exactly the same, regardless of how we vote today. So in essence, today's vote has no impact. Ultimately, it's just for show. So why bother? Well, a cynic might suspect it had something to do with the very nice photo of our chair on page 3 of Tuesday's edition of The Post. But of course, I've got an open mind. I'm not a cynic myself. So I'm very happy and look forward to hearing some good reasons as to why we are voting on this revocation that appears ultimately to be a waste of our time. I also
as I said earlier, quite like the City Sea Bridge.
Councillor Osborne, as much as I would like to listen to the good-looking photo of mine, I think we finished your time, so I'll just give you 30 seconds to wrap up.
Sure, thank you, Chair. I quite like the bridge, and basically, despite the pointlessness of the vote, I'm happy to use a cricket term to take as a free hit, and I'm willing to say I've got an open mind on the future of the City Sea Bridge. So I actually will be voting for this, and I really do look forward in February to considering the future options of the bridge, and that is when the vote will actually matter. Thanks.
Thank you. Next we have Councillor Calvert.
Thank you, and I will be supporting this. I know there's some concerns about why do this now when there's a report coming back in February. Well, I think in particular, if you've been on this council for some time, you recognise that sometimes you have to dot the I's and cross the T's and make sure there's no confusion or doubt, and I think this is really what this is about. It also is a signal to the community that they have been listened to, and other than just removing the barriers. And if you just recall, even just a few months ago, as soon as the judicial review finding came through, next minute we had the barriers up on the City to Sea Bridge very quickly, and then we were basically throwing stuff down to the tip. And as you know, we still got to find out what happened there, but family silver was being sold off at pittance rates. So I think it's really important that we do make sure there's no doubt, and I thank Councillor Abdurrahman for bringing it. I felt very comfortable in signing it because I think we'd had quite a debate on the campaign trail, but also leading up to that when sitting on the council. So thank you for this and ensuring that there is no doubt that we will not be destroying that bridge. Thank you.
Councillor Arubai.
Thank you, Chair. I'd just like to speak in support of the notice. And I just want to say that during the campaign, I campaigned on delivering decisions for the community that are shaped by the community. And clearly we've seen the community can come together, and they're quite powerful when they do so, when they are passionate about something, and it's not a crazy decision to take. It's a thought by the community that has been thought and researched really well. So I do thank the Civic Trust for their hard work and ensuring their voices are heard. And I'd also just like to respond to Councillor Osborne comment around, that this revocation is just for show. Clearly the community need assurance, and this is a respectful way of showing the community that we are reassuring them that they have been heard, and it has been researched thoroughly, and it's an appropriate decision to take. So if this is the way that we show the community that we stand by them and they're to reassure them that we're not demolishing the bridge, and we're not taking decisions without taking their feelings into consideration, their hard work, and how the City to Sea Bridge impacts Wellington is important. And I do agree that there are mixed views around the bridge. Not necessarily everybody likes it, that's absolutely fine, but there is an opportunity here to support Wellingtonians and in support of it. So thank you.
Councillor Compton.
Thank you, Chair. I'd like to thank the Civic Trust. Our community shouldn't have to fight us so hard on everything. And I'd like to thank them for saving us literally millions and millions of dollars by getting the injunction in the first place, so thank you. I showed up to the demonstration to save the City to Sea Bridge, and I support this revocation, and I thank Councillor Abdurrahman for bringing this forward today. Thank you.
Councillor Foon and Pui Hohaya, and then from there on, unless you have... Okay, let's go. Councillor Foon.
Kia ora tātou. Look, I am certainly more than happy to not have the bridge demolished. And I really appreciate the work that the community has done to raise, that it's a taonga to them, and I appreciate that. And I think in the past decision, and thank you, Councillor Osborne, for describing how that process has come about, we wouldn't necessarily have voted to demolish the bridge if we didn't. That was the only option in terms of what was offered to us at the time. So I welcome the government's changes, and I welcome the impact that that will be able to have on this decision. But I didn't sign the notice of motion or revocation because of the process as outlined. My understanding was that officers had already committed to not moving and to coming back to us in February. But today, because I also campaigned and supported the opportunity, if we had it, to just not demolish the bridge, I will support this. So thank you, Councillor Abdurrahman, but I would prefer to stick to the process if we possibly can next time. Kia ora, thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Fawn. And Pui Hohaya.
Yeah, thank you. This is a tough one. I've kind of been agonising over this one. But there's some additional advice coming to councillors and Pauiwi in February. And why do we need to revoke the decision right now when we're going to get that additional advice? So I won't be supporting this revocation.
Thank you, Pui Hohaya. And Councillor Rogers.
Yeah, I guess I just wanted to first start off by correcting the record that was made, a statement made in public participation. It was referenced that on the 18th of September 2025, I made a statement in support of retaining the bridge. I'd just like to clarify the statement that I made was that given the government's announcements, it was important that we revisited the decision on retaining the bridge. I think as councillors, we are elected to receive information and make decisions based upon that information. And so my mind is very much still open. I've definitely heard the community's views throughout the campaign around the retention of the bridge, and that is something that I will be bringing with my mind to the decision that will be coming regardless of this revocation in February. I also thought it was important to clarify that in the movers' statement they said that the earthquake-prone legislation does no longer exist. That is factually incorrect, and actually the legislation is still very much in place right now, and all we have is an announcement that they are looking to make changes. And I think it's incredibly important that when we are making decisions as a council, we're making them based on the current situation, the legislative environment that we actually exist within, because that is what we are held to account through. So I'm very happy to revisit this when we have more information, but as was alluded to earlier in the debate, I don't believe we have actually received any more information, and I was quite happy to make the decision in February.
Thank you. And Councillor Matthew. Councillor Matthew.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, for bringing this revocation, this notice. A couple of months ago, I went down to the Whariwaka tours with my daughter's school, and we had to stand on top of Frank Kitts Park while they addressed us and told us about the iconic work that went into the bridge. And they talked about it as being one of the first really, truly, well, apart from Aropa, of course, Māori-inspired artwork in the city. Personally, I'd be deeply, disappointed to lose these. But following on from that school visit, I reached out to some of our Matua, some uri of Te Atiawa, uri whose whānau, many of them have passed, and contributed over the years to the whakaaro and supported the bridge and its purpose, especially in connecting to Te Papa and the Whariwaka, and also noting that Te Atiawa have a strong influence in the operation, the commercial operation of the Whariwaka. And uri of the people who, as I say, some of them have now passed, who have provided thought and input into the design and this modern history. They were very much in support of retaining it, and they indicated to me that they would like a certainty, particularly where we have a commercial operation on the as Te Atiawa on the waterfront there. So thank you. I'll be supporting the motion.
Thank you, Mayor Little. Now it's you.
Thank you. Just a couple of things. First of all, I know this is a political forum and political in the sense of competing ideas and stuff. I just think unless we think that any councillor or group of councillors has actually acted unreasonably, I just don't think it helps to be trying to characterise different groups of councillors' views or actions. When I look at the track record of decisions on this particular issue, people have responded, in my view, reasonably to the information that went before them. So I don't think we should get too fussed about that. But the reality is the circumstances have changed because the information has changed. I will be, of course, supporting the motion. When I go back to the point about reasonableness, let's remember that notwithstanding the interim injunction, the permanent injunction hearing did not succeed. The High Court gave a very thorough decision and essentially blessed the decision making by council. So I don't think there's any need to kind of beat each other up about it. A criticism I would have of previous information or analysis that was provided to support the decision was about risk. And in fact, when I look at the particular paper here about risk, I'm not sure. I think that the paper has got it right. The obligation on council in any situation is to act reasonably, and it is a reasonable position for council to take that in view of the very clear signal the government of the day has given that there will be change to earthquake standards and the regulations surrounding it, then we make a judgment accordingly. There is a good reason why there should be a revocation of previous decisions, and I know that councillors around this table are concerned about that because councillors raised that in relation to the motorcycle parking issue in questions in a recent meeting. The question was essentially, well, if the resolution is on the books, why hasn't it been acted on? And so the question for the City to Sea Bridge is that if the resolution is there, notwithstanding further advice to be coming in February, it can still be acted on. And if we're confident that the conditions have changed, that the risks are manageable, that we are acting reasonably, then it is the right thing at this point to revoke the previous resolutions.
Councillor McNulty.
Thank you, Chair. Art is subjective, so allow me to share my subjective opinion, which I'm allowed to have. I think this is an ugly bridge, and I think the pedestrian benefits have been, at times, quite grossly overstated. And I say that as the councillor who's been pushing a pram around the waterfront for 5 years, has crossed, and will take that crossing 10 times out of 10 rather than wheeling up that way. Nonetheless, this is an incredibly easy decision to vote for. We have an $83 million sludge-shaped hole. We know the government is going to legislate a reform. Some of the semantics of this debate have been fascinating, but nonetheless. So that is potentially $20 million towards that $83 million sludge-shaped hole that we need to fill up. That is fantastic. Nonetheless, I do want to actually go back, and personally, the demolition was the right decision at the time. At the time, before earthquake-prone building review was forward, we had two options: strengthen, including the old Capital E building, remembering it had a demolition order, strengthen or demolition by 2027 on the same set ground soil conditions as the town hall, or to leave the bridge, or to demolish the bridge. And demolition was the cheaper option. So I will say, and I will stand by that was the right decision to make at the time. The facts have now changed. Earthquake-prone building reform is coming. We know this direction of it. I mean, our Chief Planning Officer has been intimately involved in the forum of it. So when councillors sort of question the intention of what that legislation may take, it has been directly shaped by the most senior leadership in Wellington City Council. But I do actually, want to call out some of the bad faith actors in this debate, because there has been, even around this table, I'm not going to name names, some lies. The bridge is being demolished for cycle lanes. our Chief Planning Officer has pointed out and refuted that. We do not need to get down to that pathway. There's been some mischaracterisation of around the advice that council reports have had, that there was never reports saying that the bridge was IL3 or that it needed to be demolished. That's just factually incorrect. And so I do take some umbrage to, there has been a groundswell of support here to save this bridge and a good campaign by many, but there have been some bad faith things in there that have actually, I think, diminished the mana of the campaign overall. So why revoke it? It's clear we're not going to tear down the bridge, and I think the Mayor just made a fantastic point that if we want consistency resolutions on the books, I mean, the whole reason that the motorcycle parking resolution did not come earlier was because there was the attempt to have a discussion with councillors and bring it through in that mechanism. And then that was made clear that there was some that felt that was inappropriate. So why would we, you can't have your cake and eat it too when it comes to these intellectual arguments around resolutions on the books, though some may do that today. So I think it's the right decision to revoke. I just want to thank Councillor Lewedi for also bringing in that perspective from the Temps Trust as well around them wanting certainty around, this having some taonga issues. And even though I think the bridge is ugly, I don't have a particular fondness for it, I appreciate that some parts of Wellington really do. So I've had a bit of a bob all over the shop, but this is an easy decision to support at the end of the day, and it's the right thing to do, and it's the right thing to get it off the books if we're not going to demolish it. Thank you.
Councillors, what I would be doing is, unless you have opposing views and we have canvassed this discussion, we will go to voting unless you have opposing views, and in which case, Councillor Matua, you go next, and then
Kia ora koutou. I want to say that I am very open to making a different decision at the right time, and for me this is not the right time, and I guess if unanimity was sought, we may achieve unanimity at the next phase of the decision making, but I do not intend to vote for this notice of revocation. And I do want to make a point how this is different than the decision around motorcycle parking, and that is we are in an circumstances have not changed, they are changing. And by the time we come to get advice in February, there will have been, we've heard today, the announcement of at least what the form of new legislation for earthquake-prone buildings will look like, and we actually don't have that today. And we do not have information about what the alternative options will be. And compared to the information that I had and the process that I went through making the decision to demolish the bridge, this is very, very, very light. And I guess I want to thank Councillor Reweti's Councillor Reweti for his comments. However, it was very different than what we heard from mana whenua throughout this process, which was yes, the uri of the artists involved were deeply involved, and we heard from them about what would happen to artworks if the bridge was demolished. However, we heard that this was not the model, this was not how we would do things today, that mana whenua were not deeply involved in the process of developing the artwork for this bridge. It was Māori artwork, but it was not local. And that was a distinction that was made and expressed to us throughout that process. So I guess I've been on this decision-making journey not to challenge the information that you've presented, but that I've heard different things. So this is why the process, following the correct process for me, is very important. I guess I just want to emphasise that the campaign is over. And that does not mean that people should breach with the decisions that they have made. However, we all have a responsibility as governors to make decisions according to the correct process and give ourselves the time to do it properly. And for me, this is not that. There are multiple views about the bridge. The decision was made to save money. If there's an opportunity to do that and retain the bridge, I'm there for that. However, I don't have the information to make that decision today. But I came on a journey where actually I saw that Te Ngākau can be better without this bridge, and that there are people that think that. Not everybody thinks that saving the bridge is the most essential thing. But I look forward to the conversation to come. I'm sorry that I'm not going to provide that unanimity you may be seeking. When there is the correct process, I'm happy to consider a different decision. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Matua, we have Pui Liz Kelly.
Oh, thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'll be brief. If I could start off with, I actually would be quite disappointed if we do end up in February deciding that we're going to demolish the bridge, because I do think it's an icon of Wellington. It's not particularly pretty, but I do think that it is an icon of Wellington and it serves its purpose. But for me, this is about process, so I won't be voting for the revocation that's been put before us. It is a bit of a hoha that we seem to be changing things. Things are coming before us quite quickly, that where decisions were canvassed and discussed and agreed upon not so long ago, but I accept that's politics and that we're doing this because we can. But in this instance, it is about process. Nothing is going to change until February, and I'm quite happy to wait until February to get that information, so I won't be supporting the motion. But I do want to thank Councillor Abdurrahman for his tenacity and bringing amendment, the resolution. Ka pai.
Thank you. Is that really burning issue for Councillor Randall and Stephen Becker, or?
Yes, I'd like to speak.
Go ahead.
Thank you. I want to ask those that are voting against it to reflect that this motion is not just for show, as outlined by Councillor Osborne. We really have been asked as a new council to make a stand in the decision, and this is a valid way that Councillor Abdurrahman has raised to do that. And the fact that it's a contentious thing is probably a good thing, because people want to understand what this council is like, especially compared to the previous council. And I see a lot of good things about this council. However, I do want to make a couple of comments. I agree with the Mayor that we really don't want to necessarily relitigate the previous argument. We want to actually sit in this decision today with the information we have on hand and make a call. With respect to Councillor McNulty's comments, though, I have to agree with him that the bridge is ugly. In fact, since the face is gone, it's probably the ugliest thing in the city. However, I do not think his comments around those councillors and members of the public around claiming that the bridge didn't need to be demolished, labelling them as bad faith actors and even saying that there were lies is going too far, and I can't let that pass. There is genuine debate, not just amongst the public, but amongst engineers as to whether the IL3 categorisation of the bridge is correct. The Dunning-Thornton report, engineers, said that there is no legal requirement for the bridge to be categorised as an earthquake-prone building, because it's not an earthquake-prone building. It's a bridge, and that's not categorised that way. And they also thought it was appropriate, as engineers, to classify it as IL2 rather than IL3. These are experts in this. And so there was genuine independent evidence that contradicts the risks that were outlined by officers. I also think that's why the option to leave it alone, being claimed to be the cheapest option, was always a valid thing. And it's unhelpful to call people out for so strongly. We can have a difference of opinion, but I think we should just.
Sorry, I
focus
will
on
have
the
to
issues.
call a point of order for misrepresentation. My comments were relating to the specific statements from our Chief Planning Officer at a meeting in December where I asked, was the bridge being demolished for cycle lanes? An explicit no was given, and then members went into the public in the election campaign, sorry, this was in September, and members went into the public and actually said that the bridge was being demolished for cycle lanes. My reference to people lying was on that very specific. It was not around the advice relating to the strengthening of the bridge. So I think I have been misrepresented, sorry, Councillor Randall, but the Chief Planning Officer made an explicit comment in September. The bridge was not being demolished for cycle lanes. People chose to say the bridge was being demolished for cycle lanes.
Thank you. What we do is we will look at those things during capacity time. And for now, if you finish, Councillor Randall, I'll go to Councillor Tiffenbacher.
Thank you. But for me, it's the outcome that matters. And the outcome from this is that the bridge is moving towards not being demolished, subject to the information to be provided in February, which I fully acknowledge. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Tiffenbacher.
I'd like to thank the Chair for bringing the notice, because realistically for me this is the correct process. Effectively we've said we're not going to demolish the bridge until we make a decision in February. I think while we leave this in place, that's the incorrect process, because we've said we're not going to do it. I think from a council's respectability and confidence level for the public, I think it's really important that when we go into that decision in February that we go in with an open mind. And I think if this is still in place, we're looking for reasons why we don't demolish the bridge rather than looking for what is the best option. And I think that's a really important part to remember, is this is about the public having confidence that the council are making the right decisions for the right reasons. And I think if we simply say all we're doing is confirming what we already know, and again, thank you very much to the CEO, because he could have demolished it straight after the judicial hearing came to an end. And I appreciate the fact that he's allowed us to have the right to make this decision on the city's behalf. And I think we should be doing that with an open mind. And I think this just is a clear example that we are not impinged by previous decisions, and we're looking at it from a totally new lens. Thank you.
Now I'll have my right of reply, and thanks to you all for the robust discussion. I really appreciate all the views. And regardless to the process, the notice of revocation actually in our standing order, it's one of the process you follow when you want to do such a thing. In the last triennium, the Environment Infrastructure Committee made the decision to demolish the CT2C bridge. On 20th of November, the new council adopted a new committee structure, including Matua, the Strategy and Delivery Committee. This committee is the one that looks after those kind of issues. As the chair of the committee, I use the standing order 24.1, outlining the requirement for the moving and acceptance of the notice of motion, which was moved, submitted to the CEO, and presented to this council. 12 out of 16 councillors, and minus again the 2 POE, supported this notice of revocation. My understanding of process is this is one of the process we follow. And so regarding the process you're talking about, I think we have followed. This is the proper process. There is no extra work for officers as well. The second point was it's politics, it's showing off. I think it's about consistency. Some of you might not know, previously I voted against the demolition of the CT2C bridge, not because I have a special connection with the CT2C bridge itself. When the evidence was presented by officers, which I really appreciate again, and we also had contradicting reports from public, and who, to be honest, right, I have never seen in my last 3 years such a quality kind of submission from the public. The engineers coming and disputing the report that we received from officers, including the engineers who built the bridge itself. For me at the time, I was convinced by the public submission, and I voted against the demolition. But I accepted the majority's decision. Now, with changing circumstances, I think it's the right time showing the respect to the community that consistently advocated for this. It is the right time showing we listen as the new council. It's the right time showing we are leading, contradict to the previous, where to some extent some in the community might say we've been led. In this case, we are leading. And I'm grateful we have the officers, the CEO, who's supporting us through this process. Again, when it comes to showing off, I'm telling you, I used to think that bridge is a bit ugly because I don't have much connections. But after I saw my photo, it looks good. I encourage you all to go and take some photos there. So I think, again, beauty, we can define it, but I think we followed the right process and showing it respect for our community, following the right process. But in all this, I also respect, and I show that respect to you who oppose this as well. With that in mind, I'll put the motion now for a vote. Please try your vote. Again, consider to vote in support. I now declare the vote is carried with 14 support, 4 against. Thank you. We will go for morning tea, and I'll see you in 10 minutes.
was very careful about how he said that.
Welcome back, councillors. Now we move to 2.4 agenda item, Reserve Act 1977, stormwater and wastewater easement at Seton National Park, Paparangi. Please welcome Kate Brown and Corey Poe to introduce the report.
There we go. Morena, this report is recommending that the committee agree to grant 3 easements over council reserve land. I take the report as read and can answer any questions.
Does anyone have a question? Nope. Thank you. There a mover for the motion? Councillor Compton.
Yes, I move the motion.
Seconder of the motion, McNulty. Deputy Mayor McNulty, do you want to speak to?
Very quickly, to note, so Seton National Park. I'll just wait for the side conversations to stop. Seton National Park is one of those jewels of the northern suburbs. It's an area that people take into fantastic care and consideration, and obviously we have the news at the moment that the proposed Petone to Granada route is looking like it would take out substantively about half of that reserve to be built, and there's a lot of community contestation. So I'm talking tangentially to the paper, but I just want to acknowledge that that's something, as this council, as those proposals come through, we're seeing a lot of view and passion around this table around the State Highway 1 improvements and things at the moment, but there is also a community in the northern suburbs that have substantive concern as well around what's going through. So Seton National Park, I'd just like those words to sort of embed in the back of people's heads somewhere, because I'm sure it's going to come up for a further debate, but no issues with the paper in front of us today whatsoever.
Is there any debate, councillors? No. Kelly.
Just quickly, because I thoroughly canvassed this paper, and I want to take the opportunity to thank the officers for the work that they've done, because I can see that there's been quite a few site visits to achieve the outcome that yous have landed at. I actually think it's going to look quite ugly, so I hope that the pipe gets overgrown quite quickly. But given that it is going to fix the potential for landslides, I think it was quite innovative to come up with this solution, so I'll be supporting the recommendations.
Right of reply. Councillor Compton, do you have any right of reply?
No, thank you. No, thank you.
I now put the motion which has been moved and seconded. Those in favour, please press 1. Those against, please press 2. I declare the motion carried. 2.5 District Plan Report Back and Work Program. Please welcome Michael Dundam and Adam to introduce the report.
Kia ora, councillors. This report covers several district planning related matters. Most of it's largely administrative, but there are some matters in there that we've been asked to return to you with following some directions in the last term. That includes the Te Ao Māori plan change update and various noise related provisions. We've also got some information on the Forward Work program that we think would be useful to draw to your attention. And on that matter, you're probably all well aware that planning reform was announced this week, and we have a new bill. We are in the process of analysing what that means, and we will be bringing a submission back to you in the new year for you to approve. And as we get more information, we'll provide further updates on what the consequences might be in terms of your roles in that system, what that means for planning, and how that might interact with the broader local government system reform. With that, I'll take the report as read and available to answer any questions.
Does anyone have any question before we move on to debate? No, thank you. Better move on for the motion. Sorry, Adam, and we have a question from Councillor Phone online.
Kia ora, thanks, Chair. Can I just check regarding the noise plan changes? Were the independent music venues, have they been part of the contribution to this conversation in the latter piece?
Through the Chair, yes, we have been in consultation with the venues, including the union that represents many of them. That's correct.
Michael, was that the Save Our Venues group that were the initiators of this through the earlier district plan?
Kia ora, Adam here, through the Chair. The Etu Musicians Union.
Yes, so not with the independent music venues group, which were previously Save Our Venues. It's the national organisation.
Yeah, I believe it was the Etu Musicians Union who Council has been working more broadly on a music live action plan as well, but certainly that group, if you approve going out for draft engagement on changes to noise provisions, that group would be included, given they made a submission on the proposed district plan and where all of these discussions have come from.
That's wonderful, thank you. The other question was just in terms of benchmarking the sound complaints that we do get for live music venues, do we have that on record, like how many complaints we get per annum?
Through the Chair, yes, we do.
Okay, and one more question was around the sound measurement technique. Can I just ask, was there any further outcomes from where we've got to, other than officers just using their own sound to monitor and measure how the sound is being, if it is over the prescribed noise level?
Through the Chair, I'd probably like to bring forward Matt Borich, who's the expert in this area, just to be able to comment on that. He'll be more familiar with the operational nature of how noise is measured.
Great, thank you.
Yeah, hello. Yes, we do a dual system. So we've got the excessive noise officers, so the contract people, and they go out and they'll make a subjective assessment. But the noise officers, council officers, we keep a close eye on any sort of ongoing issues, and then we'll organise sound measurements taken. So if it's any big issue, we will take sound measurements. And the reason we do that, apart from legislation, is that sound measurements can only be taken on calm, fine weather. And it takes about an hour and a half to take the sound measurements, take a 15-minute measurement. And we have to take a number of those. So it's a bit of a process. But so what we do now is that dual process, subjective analysis on the night. If there's an issue that arises, sound measurements are organised.
That's great. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Chair.
Councillor Fawn. Councillor O'Brien.
I just had a question to do with the plan stop legislation. Just like your analysis on what, how this would fit in for gaining an exemption under that. And I don't know if there's been any sort of similar plan changes or things that have been granted exemption. Thanks.
So through the Chair, yes, we would have to apply for an exemption to progress the noise plan change or any other plan changes that the Council wishes out to 2027. We are aware of several plan exemptions that have been sought, including our own. In terms of similar applications, I understand that Christchurch City Council, we're looking at something similar. I'm not aware of the status of that decision at this point in time, but there is, I am aware of something in the Christchurch area with a similar exemption process underway.
And I just had one about the live music action plan as well. What's the sort of progress that's been made towards that? Because I know that's going to feed into maybe some changes to that draft plan.
Through the chair, so officers including the arts and entertainment part of council economic development have been engaging with the Etu Musicians Union on what a live action plan could achieve, and certainly a district plan controls could be a supporting component of that. What we would look to do is join up those two discussions and return to you with the results of engagement and what district plan provisions could support where the live action plan gets to for consideration to notify or to ask for an exemption from the Minister to notify a plan change.
Councillor Culbert.
Yeah, my question is about SNAs, and I know there's been a couple of appeals around on our district plan, and one of those appeals is from Greater Wellington Regional Council. So, with the recently announced changes to the RMA, where I understand that if council wants to make change, put some of the stuff in, that it has to be able to offer compensation. So how, with what Greater Wellington have done is in terms of effectively appealed, but presumably they're not bearing any of that cost if the appeal wins or have whatever the process is. So I'm just really concerned that we've got one council appealing something that might well end up costing our ratepayers a lot of money, but there's no full comeback on them. So I just wonder if you considered that aspect.
We are examining what the future system might look like. There are some current processes at play. So there are actually two relevant SNA related matters, one through the Regional Council's own statutory process around their regional policy statement. We're currently working through an appeal with them on that. We think that we're making meaningful progress that would align with Council's previous direction through its district plan decisions, so to not impose SNAs, for instance, in your ward. It
was about residential, it wasn't just my ward, but it was a big part of it, yeah.
and then we think that if we can resolve that will have some natural flow-on effects which will be beneficial for the Council's position in its own district plan decisions. What comes from the future system will have to be worked through the new system, and we will have to reevaluate what the starting position is at that time. So this will all be relitigated again in 3 or 4 years' time.
Okay, thank you.
Mayor Little.
Just a question really incidental from advice received this morning. In view of the advice we've received that noise measurements are taken on still days in Wellington, I'm just curious to know how many days in a year are noise readings taken. And then secondly, in terms of measurement of noise, is the critical thing the strength of the noise at source, or is it the noise as heard by the listener/complainant?
Through the chair, I'll ask Matt Borich to return to answer that question.
So there are specific requirements as wind speeds of 5 metres per second. So we do take measurements. Basically, like today, you'd probably be able to take sound measurements, but you can't take them on those windy, northerly days or if it's raining. And the noise measurements are taken at the complainant's property or another site, not at source.
I don't see any further questions. Pui Kelly.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. My question is with regard to, I don't know if you were present when we had public participation and we had a dog owner talking about his the business that he set up. At item 15, when you're talking about the noise, the draft noise levels here for commercial dog facilities, is this still isn't addressing what he's raised about the requirement for them only to be able to use it from 7 to 7 p.m, or is it?
Through the chair, so there are two ways in which the plan seeks to manage the effects around the dog parks. So first is to control the hours of operation, and that's to set a general baseline of what might be expected in certain zones around, if you live next door to a dog park or you wanted to operate a dog park, there is a general conservative baseline that you could base your decisions around, either establishing or what you might expect from your neighbour. And the 7 to 7 requirement is there to set a reasonable standard of noise by proxy. What comes in at play with the second element is actually the noise limits themselves. So despite the 7 to 7 period, there is still a need for operators to comply with certain noise requirements. So if they exceed those, then that becomes a compliance issue. So it's managed in two particular ways there.
So I think the point that he was trying to make, though, is that if we were doing that for commercial dog facilities, that it should be the same for public facilities, dog facilities as well. Are we going to be looking at that?
We aren't proposing to, at least in the paper so far, to relook at public dog parks. They are slightly different in nature, given that many parks are kind of fixed locations, and private dog parks could be enabled citywide. So there is a difference between the two. The proposal at this stage, based on the resolutions from earlier in the year, is to investigate what might be suitable settings for private dog parks.
As a permitted activity?
Correct.
Councillor, Officer Orden, do you want to add anything?
Yes. Just a clarification that may help you in your debate. What you're debating is a rule for commercial dog facilities. That definition will cover things like kennels and other commercial dog operations, not just dog parks, and it will extend across all residential zones. So if it is your intention to solely permit a dog park through this mechanism, you may have to look at the definition of the term you're debating.
Okay, cool. Thank you. I think.
Councillor O'Brien.
Just following on from Councillor Calvert's point on the appeals, I understand that there are some significant changes, particularly in that SNA space, but I just wanted to clarify that the approach going forward is still to work towards the current legislation and not sort of preempt things too much. And I guess how are you managing that through appeals, given the changes are so massive towards legislation?
Through the chair, I'll quote Sean Ordain here, but the law is the law until it's not the law. So we are operating within the current regulatory environment, and that's what we're using to guide our approach with appeals.
I think it's also important to recognise that we have clear direction from the previous council on the council position about not having SNA designated in the residential areas. And we have abided by that and negotiated through the appeal process to that position.
Deputy Mayor McNulty.
Just clarifying on Rob's submission this morning around the private dog park. So my understanding, the Takapu Valley is rural land for all intents and purposes and still is in terms of use, but through district plan that was reclassified into large lot residential. That brought with it new conditions around noise, and because we didn't specifically notify the impacted residents, but we did our usual engagement process if we are doing a district plan change, but we didn't specifically write to those that would be impacted, he didn't have an opportunity to then present to the IHP in the original district plan about the appropriateness of that designation for his land. Is that a correct understanding?
So just to clarify, the approach that was taken with the proposed district plan was to take quite a broad approach to the way that we engaged through the notification process. So no, not every single landowner or occupier within the city was served direct notice of the public notice that went out with the notification. However, all ratepayers, so landowners who pay rates, were advised as part of their rates notice of the district plan proposal. So there is always a gap that's possible when we're serving notice through RMA processes. In this instance, I think there was quite a broad engagement approach that was taken. There were drop-in sessions. There was a big social media campaign. There were various stages of engagement throughout the process. So I think the council took definitely a more than minimum approach to the way that the public was engaged, and there would have been ample opportunity for people to lodge a submission, but I accept that those rural landowners were not formally sent a letter specifically on the district plan, but there was a rates notice that was sent out to every ratepayer that drew attention to the district plan process and invited people to participate.
Cool. No, look, thank you. Not intending that as a critique, it was just purely that in this case, I just wanted to close the loop that the council did not specifically let the rural landowners that went from rural to LLZ a very direct notice, which you confirmed, so thank you.
Councillor Randall.
Just want to follow up on these questions about the regional councils, Plan Change 1 and our engagement with them. With respect to sorting them out by mediation, if an agreement is not reached via mediation, so first, two questions. First of all, in terms of the council's position on SNAs and residential private property, is the council's position going to be moderated or give way, or if it's not able to be resolved by mediation, will we then go on to the Environment Court?
So through the chair, approach that. So first of all, the council has delegated to the district planning manager the ability to negotiate through the appeals process a resolved outcome. So that's being taken on board through officers. We've got very strong direction from the decisions where we feel that we aren't able to reach an agreement that aligns with the political decision making that was made on the district plan. We are not seeking to compromise. We need some flexibility to have some give and take through the process, but where there's been a strong position, such as the SNAs, we are not looking to agree through mediation if that compromises council's position, and that would lead then to an appeal process and a hearing through the Environment Court.
Okay, and so I would assume that if a resolution is not found that meets our council requirements, that would also be reported back to elected members in the due correct time frame.
Correct.
Okay.
And if we feel that there's a position that officers might be comfortable with but may be testing from a political perspective, then we would seek to return to the council to seek advice to help inform our position before we would confirm.
Okay, thank you very much.
Councillor Matua.
Yeah, sorry, I may be asking a question that's related to amendments, but I just generally, because we've been talking about the issues to do with commercial dog parks, and we have one, so I'm just interested in any other information that's relevant to us around. Are there any other issues of non-compliance, or is there any feedback been received from neighbours about noise?
Through the chair, yes, there, for the particular dog park that was spoken about this morning, there has been compliance investigations based on feedback that we've received from neighbours. The outcome of that was that, based on the monitoring that was done, that the operation was compliant. So there wasn't a compliance issue in terms of further enforcement action required there. But there may be some concerns from perhaps some of those neighbours about whether the current settings in the district plan are sufficient to meet their needs, because that was the yardstick in which the compliance was measured. So,
So as a follow-up, I guess if there's kind of amendments that would further kind of extend noise-making ability of the, or regulation around that? Have we had some indication that some neighbours might?
I haven't heard anything directly from neighbours, but I would expect that through consultation processes that we would receive a broad range of feedback, and this would be bundled up with various other noise matters. So I'd expect various feedback about what's acceptable and what's reasonable and what the settings might be appropriate for the district plan in the future.
Councillor Osborne.
With the permission of the chair, I'd also like to ask a question about the amendment. It seems like is that
the amendment is once.
Just in case Councillor Randall, if and when he introduces it.
It needs to be introduced before.
Okay, all good.
Okay, Pui Kelly.
Okay, thank you. So thank you for clarifying that, we did notify them that we were reviewing the district plan and for that clarity. I do think, though, that if we were going to rezone somebody's land, that maybe we could have made a bigger attempt to get their buy-in. But what I wanted, what I'm hearing from you is, or what I think I'm hearing from you is that today is not the day, though, for us to make changes. It's because you're still going through mediating any appeals, or is there something that we can do? And essentially I'm asking this because I do recall that there was going to be an amendment from Councillor Randall, but I haven't seen it.
It was emailed, but
okay.
What is your question, Pui?
So my question, sorry. So my question is today the day that we make changes?
Through the chair, today what is contained in the paper is a recommendation around proceeding with some pre-consultation on changes to the district plan related to noise. I understand there might be an amendment seeking an adjustment to part of the recommendation around that. The next step that would follow from that is that officers would return with advice with a draft plan change for council to then approve for public consultation, subject to ministerial exemption.
Cool.
So what you would be voting on today is the parameters around what we would be consulting on in the new year to inform the report back to you sometime in the middle of next year. And
based on what we get told about the changes to the RMA, that might change again?
Not necessarily, because there is still 3 to 4 years of life still left in our district plan and the RMA.
Cool. Thank you very much.
Deputy Mayor McNulty.
Yeah, look, without claiming that expecting you guys have had time to drill through everything on the new Planning and Environment Acts, the noise overlays, do you expect these to be provisions that would be carried forward in the new legislation? I noted the Minister's emphasis has been very much on private property rights. So have we seen anything explicit around whether our current proposed noise overlays would be able to carry forward into the new regime?
It's probably too early to comment. The only thing I'd probably note with what I have seen is that there will be a lot more of an emphasis on taking a compliance-based approach to managing effects. So that might mean that there's a more permissive envelope for activities, but then when levels are exceeded, then that would be worked out through enforcement and compliance.
Do you know whether levels being exceeded, is that still going to be within the delegation of City Council, or would we expect that levels being exceeded would also be a nationally consistent designation?
We'd expect to have some national guidance on that. From what I've heard from the Minister in recent days is that councils will still be responsible for managing things like noise, and that will definitely have a compliance enforcement lens to it also.
Through you, Mr Chairman, and just to add, the national standards will roll out over time, and Michael's made that point that we are still very early days in getting this Act up and running from a planning point of view. The other point I'd make is, I think Councillor McNulty touched on this, is whilst it is more permissive, the environmental baselines are going to be more impressive if you do cross them. So the impact of not complying with the baselines will be greater than they currently exist today. I think that's a fair enough point.
Thank you, councillors and officers. This is the end of the question time. Is there a mover for the motion? Councillor O'Brien, do you want to speak to? The second, is there a seconder for the motion? Piwiwi Kelly. Now we move into Councillor Randall's amendment. Is a debate.
Thank you, fellow committee members, and thanks, officers, for putting up my proposed amendment. What this amendment will do is put a proposed change to the dog facilities, the coverage of dog facilities rule out for consultation for being amended. Look, the noise rules in the district plan have changed quite a lot from the previous district plan, and I think officers can see that they weren't quite right. We're seeing it in other parts of the officers' recommendations that they want to now change the noise rules in a number of other areas. There's been, you might say, I'm not sure if error is the right word, but I guess error is the word I'd use, in the effect of the new district plan essentially stopping construction in the evenings, and it's also banned shooting in large lot residentials, which is essentially a rural area, and you know these are not to be unexpected, I guess, in a very large complex change, but just note that we are changing other noise rules, so we're going to have a noise rule plan change. We've also heard, so this amendment will ask that we consult on removing dog parks from the noise rule 7 that further restricts the activities of dog facilities, and in particular they have a blanket 7 to 7 operating hour restriction, which impinges on the operations. We've also seen that and we only have one dog park, which is interesting. We've heard from Mr. Soosted today about both the benefits and why he got into the dog park business in Wellington City. And how there's actually a need for that, that there's many dogs that need private outdoor space to adjust or readjust from a dog attack. He's also told me that sometimes the police come along and they want extra practice when they're training their police dogs, and they rent there's many years people go and picnic with their dogs, and it's just a nice spot. He's got a great spot there, I've got to say, I recommend it. But also how the current restriction limits his abilities to operate, and especially in the summertime in the evenings, when the cooler time, while it's still daylight, people want to be able to go out and use the dog park, but the district plan rule is very blanket and it totally restricts it. I also have to note he has been totally compliant with all the district plan rules, and he's had officers comment that while his neighbours, he's got neighbours who may not necessarily want him to have a dog park next door, he's been found to be totally compliant in terms of the noise. Because dog park noise, as his observation, is not the same as noise from other facilities. Other facilities like kennels and that have dogs from different, who don't know each other, and therefore his observation is that they bark at each other because they're worried or they want to be aggressive. Whereas in a dog park, it's actually a private dog park, it's actually the opposite. And I accept his position on that, even if it's not fully supported by officers. Removing dog parks from the rule will still mean that they have to meet the zonal requirements. They've still got to meet the zonal requirements for not generating noise. So this is not that he can just operate with total abandon, and he's actually brought out his rules. He's even got his rules here, and barking and restricting numbers of dogs and people is all part of his rules. And I'd like to table his document if that's okay. I also want to note that this also would align the noise restrictions of private dog parks to public dog parks, and note that this is how dog parks are managed in all the other cities, around the place. This is an exceptional rule. Our dog facilities rule is exceptional. It wasn't in the previous district plan. It's not in Lower Hutt. It's not in Poiru. It's not in Auckland. It's not in Christchurch. In those places, dog parks are managed the way that this, under general rules as a permitted activity. So I think too that there's an issue that this rule was not really consulted during the district plan. It sort of flew totally under the radar, as did a number of other rules we're now correcting with respect to noise. And so it really does deserve a bit of a public hearing as to where the role of private dog parks and the noise effect of them, should be considered. It's not a changing the rule, it's just putting it to consultation. So I do ask you to support taking the dog park, the facility which is known as a dog park, out of the list of facilities which are deemed dog facilities for this noise rule, which is really the effect of this amendment. So thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Randall. Before we move to the second of the amendment, do you have any questions, councillors? Councillor Matthew, may I invite officers to respond to the question?
So just a point of clarification. So the hours of operation essentially are not a limit. They can be extended just with consent.
Through the chair, yes, that's correct.
And these noise rules also apply to a bunch of other organisations. And I guess the one I had, I'm checking that I'm correct, because the organisation I've worked with in my ward is an early childhood centre that wanted to open their hours extend their hours of operation. So they had to apply for a consent similarly. So what other sorts of organisations are subject to these noise rules?
So this rule is particularly focused on controlling, was it commercial dog facilities? Yes. Commercial dog facilities. So that definition, as Sean mentioned previously, relates to kennelling and dog parks and all sorts of commercial dog type activities.
But there are noise rules related to hours of operation for other sorts of organisations?
Yes, and loading and operating hours for commercial activities as well. So it's not uncommon to have hours of operations, and they're often used to manage effects.
I guess what I'm getting to with my question about potentially creating an inequity between commercial dog parks and lots of other organisations that have their opening hours covered by noise rules.
I guess that would be a value judgment for the councillors to determine whether an operating hour standard is required or not.
Thank you.
Councillor Osborne.
Thank you, Chair. Can you just quickly outline the consultation process that would follow this amendment, and who has the final delegation for making these changes to the district plan?
Through the chair, so the consultation process that we're looking to undertake would involve engaging all of the stakeholders that we've referenced in the report. So for the venues noise, that'll be operators. That'll be probably a little bit more extensive around the venues noise actually, because it's probably going to include things like residents in the city centre, because they're going to receive that effect, and it's really important for us to understand what that means for both the operators but also the receiving environment. In terms of the dog parks and this amendment, we'd look to engage with the submitter this morning, and we know that there have been conversations through enforcement with neighbouring landowners, and then there would be a general public opportunity for people to provide feedback, because I guess the effect of this amendment would be that it would change the settings at a citywide level. So it's important that the city be given an opportunity to have a say on that, because they may not anticipate that those settings might otherwise change. So we wouldn't be looking to serve notice on every individual household in the city on this, because that would be quite expensive to do so. Just for context, when we served notice on the airport's designation recently, that was going to cost us about $50,000, and that was a subset of the city. So that's quite a lot of money for a relatively small, discrete topic.
Through the chair, when we did pre-consultation on Plan Change 1, one of the other tools we used was emailing those who had signed up to our e-newsletter. So the council has a district plan updates e-newsletter. There are around 2,000 people who have registered their interest, including individuals, community groups and organisations. They would receive a notification that we're beginning this consultation, inviting comment. We would also look to use residents associations as well as a way of helping spreading word and getting feedback.
And sorry, Chair, just to close out the second part of the question, ultimately what will happen is we will return with advice to Council in the new year. That will come in the form of a proposed plan change that will be there for councillors to approve, and then we can initiate a formal RMA district plan change process. There will be that step of seeking ministerial exemption first before that can proceed. So we'd anticipate coming back to you sometime before the middle of next year.
Councillor Compton.
Thank you, Chair. To Councillor Matthews' question, how much would a resource consent cost a dog facility if they were to want to extend their hours?
So it depends, and the short answer to that would be if it was to be non-notified, it would cost approximately $3,397. If it was to be notified, and that would be for public notification or limited, $4,182 is the consent fee.
Thank you.
Councillor Rogers.
Yeah, I guess this raises my, somewhat perennial concern with noise changes around reverse sensitivity. So I guess in the paper, it talked about this being impulsive noise as opposed to kind of continuous noise. So I was wondering, a change like this, particularly given it applies to things like the CCZ and the metropolitan centre zones, mixed-use zones as well, sort of what reverse sensitivity requirements would be imposed on, I guess, residential or commercial development in the city centre?
Difficult question to answer, but I guess what I would say is that, as I said earlier to Pou Kelly, there are two ways in which the dog park noise rules function. So we've got the hours of operation, that's to set a general baseline around what you might expect in terms of when it might be noisy. You would also still have to comply with the general noise rules per zone. So in effect, whether the hours of operation are contained to 7 to 7 or they're broader than that or they don't exist, that compliance still exists. So the reverse sensitivity in many ways is kind of managed by the fact that you still have to comply with the noise rules regardless. We aren't proposing to change the noise levels in which compliance is achieved.
Cool, thank you.
Councillor Tiffenbacher.
So just for clarity, so the reason this has become an issue is because there was a zone change from rural, so that all of a sudden becomes residential, is that right? And also, my understanding it's the only private dog park in Wellington. Would we even have mentioned private dog parks in the suggestion had it not been for the fact that we had this one dog park and that it was on rural, but now it's on residential? And are there other ways that we can actually make sure, I assume there's rules around new private dog parks being established in town?
Through the chair, so to a few parts of that question. First of all, with regards to the zone, whether it was zoned to a different, say a rural type zoning or not, the rule has been applied to various zones across the city, and it's by the by, I guess, whether or not it was zoned large lot residential or not. That's correct.
Correct, through the chair. So the same rule in the hours of operation restriction applies both in the rural zone and large lot. So the zone settings aren't really part of that.
Sorry, I've forgotten the other parts of your question. If you could ask it again.
Oh yeah, so it's just if we didn't have one dog park already, private dog park in Wellington already, would we even have bothered including it? And I guess just to clarify, so that would mean that if there was another private dog park being established on the middle of a farm in Wellington, but miles away from everything else, these rules around 7 to 7 would still apply if we carry on? Because that seems slightly unreasonable, rather than case-by-case study on it.
I'm not sure if the dog park was established prior to the PDP. I'd have to...
I can answer that. I was the manager at the time. The dog park came to our attention through enforcement action, so it wasn't a factor in the establishment of the rule itself. That's perhaps part of the problem here.
And to answer the final part of your question there, if one was to be established in a farm somewhere in the city, yes, the rules as set in the district plan for the permitted activity would apply, and if an operator wished to operate outside of those, then they would need to obtain a resource consent.
Councillor Chang, do you still have a question? Or?
I'm just like, you talked before about public dog parks and private dog parks. In a public dog park, have you ever, has the noise level from the public dog parks ever been an issue? Like, have there been complaints? I'm thinking of the Karori one where the noise travels up a valley, and so are the residents, the houses above the dog park, are they concerned about the amount of noise that comes out of them, or is there a significant noise coming out of them?
I'd just like to invite Matt Borich to the table again to answer this, if you don't mind.
With regards to council dog parks, there's been one complaint in a year. And there's been, with regards to commercial dog facilities, there's been about 45.
Okay, do you have a follow-up question, Councillor Chang?
Sorry, yeah, can I follow up on that? Why is there such a disparity? Is it because of the location, or is it because it's a private dog park? And would it be because residents feel that they have less avenue to actually complain about a public dog park that's been put there by the council, or is that? Do you think that would be the reason?
I think just to help councillors move on to the decision, the dog parks that exist in the city relate to a consultation process, usually through the reserve management plan, and it's often really regarded widely, that process, and you hear those submissions and you make those decisions relating to the location of the dog park. So I suspect those figures you're hearing from Mr. Borich relates to the fact that the parks themselves were well consulted, well agreed by the community, or not at the time, but the decision was made. The contesting issue that you've mentioned relating to this specific site, and it has been raised, that the matters being investigated for this particular operator was because of residents nearby being concerned about the activity, has led to us bringing this issue to you via Councillor Randall's notice of motion, of course, in some sense. So I hope that provides clarity, and over to you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. And next on the list is Councillor Randall.
Thank you. In terms of whether or not the rule applies or doesn't apply, the rules that have been put in place often have been changed subject to submission. And I'm thinking, for example, the exemption that the airport has to enable shooting, which is right in the middle of the city, really. But they actually went through the district plan. They knew about the district plan, and they put a submission into the district plan that meant that they got a special rule exemption and did not have to apply for resource consent. Is that correct?
Through the Chair, that is correct. An amendment was made to that rule through the hearings process because of the Wellington International Airport submission.
Yeah. In terms of operating hour restrictions, while there are some businesses that are significant and have operating hour restrictions through resource consents, we generally don't have operating hour restrictions for home businesses. If you've got like a home business as a hairdresser or a car repair or just working from home, we don't require you to have resource consent if you're going to work after 7 p.m. Is that correct?
Through the chair, that is correct, and any significant noise issues would be addressed reactively using council's other powers under section 16 to avoid unreasonable noise.
Right, and finally, if we go through a consultation process and we receive submissions, I mean, it's not necessarily clear that any resultant noise would be applied citywide. It could be, for example, as we applied the shooting noise rule exemption to rural zones, it could be that any exemption provided for dog parks may be restricted, subject to the submissions, to maybe only specific zones. Is that correct?
Through the chair, I'm sure we'll receive a wide range of feedback on the proposals.
Yeah. But it is possible to have a rule that says you can have a dog park, but only in large lot residential and rural, for example, as opposed if there's objections, for example, to putting one in high-density housing areas.
Certainly that could be a possible outcome, and we would bring the results of the consultation exercise back to you for you to determine with advice what's the appropriate balance.
Thank you very
there.
much. That's great.
Thank you. Deputy Mayor McNulty.
Just to confirm, this is a unique Wellington rule overlay that Porirua, Lower Hutt, Upper Hutt, Auckland, Hamilton, Christchurch do not apply. We have thought this is a rule that is appropriate within the confines of our city.
Through the chair, correct, those other plans don't include a specific rule such as that we're talking about now.
Cool, thank you.
Councillor Matua.
So, apologies, colleagues, for dragging this out further. Cost, do we have any idea about the cost associated with the passage of this referendum to do this extra work?
I couldn't put a dollar figure on it, Chair. If we're bundling it up with other consultation processes, then there's cost efficiencies that come with that. If it proceeds through to a district plan hearing and decisions, then a plan change for the noise-related content, if I was to give a ballpark figure, probably looking at between $50,000 to maybe $75,000 for consultation, notification, public notices, employing commissioners to make decisions, reporting back, and then the officer time as well.
Thank you.
Councillor O'Brien.
So the view was expressed this morning that an exemption makes sense for the operating hours of dog parks because the effects would be different from the other things that are included under that rule, like kennels, etc., which seemed to make sense to me. Do you think there is a difference in the effect for dog parks to other things that are included currently?
Through the chair, just to clarify, that wasn't the officer advice that dog parks be pulled out.
Sorry, I was referring to the view of the...
oh, right, sorry,
yeah.
Thank you. I guess what the rule is trying to do is to manage the effects of impulsive or barking noise that can occur from those three slightly different types of dog-related activity. Depending on the intensity, the environment in which it's located, how close neighbours are, and what kinds of dogs there could be and how they're managed, then the noise effects could well be similar.
Lucky last, Councillor McNulty and councillors. I think we have had a good questioning time. I'm ruling out, and I'm sorry for those who are on the list. So, okay, fantastic. Thank you, officers, and that's the end of the question time. And so, who is the seconder of the amendment? Councillor McNulty. Do you want to speak to it?
Yeah, I'll speak to it after that exhaustive lot of questioning. I really hope, because I can tell some people are gearing up to oppose this amendment, that you've been up to the Takapū Valley before doing it, because if there is anywhere in the city where you would expect to open a private dog park, it is the Takapū Valley. It is rural land. And yes, we've classified it as large lot residential as part of the district plan, but this is one lane, car stopping, horses. This is rural land. It is the most appropriate place a private dog park could be in the entirety of Wellington City. And I think really the issue that we've come to, and the reason we're debating this in terms of councillors, is that for better or worse, through the initial district plan process, this property owner wasn't aware that the noise rule overlay R7 would apply to their land, that would be put onto rural land. And the best place that this could have been fought out and discussed and deliberated and pulled out was in front of the IHP with a submission, and they would have weighed the evidence and made their considerations and recommended back to council. That hasn't happened. We now have this here, and that is why councillors are picking it up, and that is an entirely appropriate thing to do. That a district plan change was made, a specific rule has had some unintended consequences, that we debate it. And since we've just had a debate about that was very heavy on what is proper process, well, when we go out to consult, we should go out with what is the change that we want to do as the affirmative, and then hear back in that consultation process what people think to that change. That is entirely consistent and normal with what we do around this table. And so if we want to look at reducing, taking dog parks out of the R7 classification, that is what we should be putting forward in consultation as good, proper process. I want to thank Mr. Sustad though, because we actually have him to thank for getting rid of a really silly rule in this plan. If you go to point 16 in the paper, you'll see that a resource consent for conservation shooting will no longer be required. Now that passed by a casting vote in the last triennium, that farmers or people doing shooting to protect wild habitats, replanting natives, that was barely managed to come through, but it was the efforts of Mr. Sustad highlighting that to us Takapu councillors, Councillor Randall, myself and Councillor Panovich, who all unanimously supported that was a problem. And he's brought another one to us, and something that we need to look into. So there is no better place in the city for a private dog park. We are going out for a consultation. That is it. There will be a chance to hear in that consultation whether this is an appropriate change to make or not, but it is entirely appropriate, entirely stand with governance process that we should go out with the affirmative of this rule and see what the public have to say back to us. It is a compliant park. It's a boutique Wellington rule, and I'll take a little bit of exception. We're not that special in Wellington. We're actually not. And we have a lot of rules. We heard it. Mayor Little and I sat down with the master plumbers and heard about how a specific bidet product, which is allowed at every single territory authority except for Wellington and Tauranga. We're not that special. And if our neighbours aren't doing it, and we have a regional planning vehicle that's moving to consistency and private property rights, with 2 or 3 years to go of this district plan, why impose a rule that is unlikely to stand? And let's just get regionally consistent. So I really think there is no good reason to oppose this amendment. I'm sure people will find a reason, but I think it is really, really clear. So let's go.
I don't see any hand. Okay, Councillor Rogers.
Yeah, I thought I was going to be able to listen to some debate on this. I guess I just heard through the Q&A that the application of noise R7 was permitted across a broad range of rules and zones. And I think as the amendment is currently drafted as well, it does allow the hours of operation to be excluded for dog parks in any centre, like in all residential zones. And I do take the point that it is quite applicable for a commercial dog facility to be in a large lot residential or a general rural zone. I think that's quite expected. I think, yeah, I guess my reservation at the moment, and apologies I didn't raise this earlier with you, Councillor Randall, is just around its application to all residential zones, but that's also possibly because of the way Noise R7 is currently drafted in the operative district plan.
I don't see any other hands. That means right of reply.
Oh, I'm quite staggered about the extent of debate about what is a overarching, heavy as a hammer district plan rule targeting one small dog park in the depths of part of Takapu Valley that many of us have never even been to. I want to start off because I've heard some critical comments that I'm very disappointed in elected members, including Councillor Rogers, for not engaging with me as the mover of the amendment. This was sent around over a day or so, and I invited any questions to come, any concerns to come to me, so that we could have a discussion, an open discussion, not to change your mind, but so that you are as well informed as possible. The time limits around this council table means that it's not easy to get every element of this out. And so I would do that for other people's, and I have done that for other people's. And I do thank, for example, Councillor Abdurrahman, Councillor McNulty, Councillor O'Brien, for all having conversations with me around this, and because they have concerns and they don't like to go against officer advice. No, we don't want to. It's a very particular area, and the district plan is a very permanent thing. I'm also disappointed that there's been no debate about the other noise stuff. We're permitting construction noise into the evenings and weekends. Okay? The officers say they got it wrong. We take it as read. And yet that's going to affect the whole city all over. You know, we didn't go back and say, well, why did you put the restriction in the first place? Wasn't it an error? Well, we didn't explore that. I mean, really. Mr. Sustad asked for a fair say. That's all he's doing. He's asking that he got targeted by a rule he literally didn't know about. And he had never had a chance to go and engage with that rule. And in fact, the entire city didn't, because we pretty well only got one technical submission on it. Nothing about the operating hours, not even a submission. I also want to note that he's not the only submission. There's a submission from Dr. Steve Glassy, former CEO of Wellington SPCA, a person who knows about this, has worked with the council over years, contributed his own time over years towards good care of people, and he fully supports this dog park. He says he actually asked us to refrain from imposing unreasonable further restrictions on the Godwood private dog park and engage with them to develop a comprehensive council policy on private dog park operations. And that's exactly the sort of thing we should be doing. I also note that our rule is an exception, as Councillor McNulty pointed out. We've got a special rule, and I actually am not asking for the rule to be revoked. Okay, because I'm concerned too. I don't have a dog. This is the crazy thing. It's taking hours to learn about this stuff. But I've taken this on board as a constituent issue for my ward, and I'm sort of a bit surprised that it's taken as read, and the support that we're getting from other councillors who've been actively engaged is not given enough credibility from councillors who haven't engaged with this issue. Finally, I want to note out that we are not changing the rule. What we're doing is we're asking that this rule go to consultation for proper professional assessment and public submissions. And so, and yes, and what I say, of course. And I have to note with Councillor Pauiwi Cowley, there's another supporter behind the scenes have engaged. That's good, and others too. So look, we're just asking for a small thing, and I don't know why it's so hard. I wish we had actually given some of this attention has gone to one little amendment on one district plan noise rule when we're doing a noise plan change, that we'd go to do more of the stuff on some of the other issues. But I do think that this is a good thing to do. It's very straightforward. It's likely to come back to us, and then please support it. Thank you.
Thank you. Before we move to vote, I'm going to allow as a chair to Officer Hudson to ask you some point of clarification, Councillor Randall, and I am expecting that to be short and spread.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So just quickly, Councillor, is it your intention with this motion to apply across all the zones, or is it just to the large lot rural zones only?
Look, I'm comfortable with officers putting... no, it's not to apply to all the zones. I think I'm happy for officers to recommend a subset of zones to which the rule exemption would be applicable as a permitted activity, because I'm conscious that dog noise is tricky. That's why there's the reason the rule's there, because dog noise is tricky to deal with under our general noise level issues.
Understand. So great. So my suggestion would be, by the leave of committee, we amend it to include those two zones, the large lot and the rural zones only.
So you're saying, sure, to exclude excluding dog parks in large lot residential and rural zones?
Only.
Only. Well, I'm comfortable at this point, given the whole thing could be thrown out in 2 years' time.
What residential zones?
Only. Large lot residential and rural zones only.
So, okay, we're going to have a leave of a meeting for...
Can you just check the dates?
Thank you. Yeah, thank you, Your Worship. Very good. Okay, thank you, Mr. Chairman. That's good.
Okay, thank you. Now, I now put the motion which has been moved and seconded to vote. And those in favour, please press 1. Those against, please press 2.
Well, thank you.
I declare the motion carried.
Members.
Okay, this is the last agenda item. Oh, we have to go to the sound. Okay, fair enough. And are we calling for the seconder of the? Was it seconded? Okay, councillors, any debate on? Okay.
I'll just very quickly thank you for the support on that amendment. It's fantastic. I just want to call out a few things in this paper which I think are genuinely good, one thing not so good. Number 4, resource management commissioners. We will be looking for ones with expertise in te ao Māori ecology, development, economics and transport planning. Fantastic. Cannot be more stoked that we're looking for RMA commissioners with a broader range of experience. 16 I've touched on, but resource consents for conservation shooting will no longer be required. 17, I'll just highlight that now because I expect this to become something we will grapple with when this comes back. In the district plan, currently the ventilation standards along the rail corridors have been applied to a number of other areas, and there's good reason for higher ventilation standards on rail corridors around noise. Trains go past, you don't want residents having to rely on opening their windows for their houses to be cooled. You want internal ventilation so that you mitigate the noise issues with rail corridors. However, that has been applied across a number of areas in the city, so you have some places, such as in Calburn or Miramar, requiring the same level of mechanical ventilation as next to a rail corridor in London, and that has really explicit building costs extents. 4 times the building code is my understanding, so there is some change in there which is fantastic to be looked at. But the one grumble, there's the te ao Māori plan change, and that cannot progress at this time without ministerial approval, and I unfortunately do not share a huge amount of confidence that we will get ministerial approval through this government for a te ao Māori plan change, and I think that is a real shame. So good stuff in this paper. Thank you, Michael, Adam, your teams for the work that you've been doing. We're progressing in a good direction, some things to pull out, but just disappointing that that te ao Māori plan change may have to wait until the new Planning and Environment Acts come into effect.
Councillor Foon.
Yeah, kia ora tātou. I also just want to thank officers for working with Etu Music Union and also our across departments to get this constructive way forward with supporting our live music venues and musicians to be able, and I think the reason for this is there's been a conflict with, we want inner city living, but we've also got a conflict with the vibrancy and how we help our creative community and small businesses to thrive in the area. So I'm really pleased to see that a live music action plan will be part of this. I think that's a really good way to set out for businesses and bar owner operators what the rules are and make them very clear, because as I understand, everybody wants to comply, but it's not clear on what they need to comply to, particularly with sound. So it's really constructive to see this. So thank you, officers, for all the mahi that you're putting in. Kia ora. That's it from me. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Foon. Is there any other debate? Thank you, Mayor.
Sorry, no, just point of order, actually. I need to declare a conflict of interest. I'm actually a member of Etu, although not the musicians part of Etu. I think I'd be barred from that branch, but I am a member of Etu, so I should just declare that.
Councillor O'Brien, do you have a right of reply?
Yeah, just to thank the officers again. It's obviously a very challenging environment with so much change happening. So, yeah, thanks for all the mahi on this.
Okay, we go to.
Mayor Little has just declared. If we could just clarify, is there a specific?
Just in relation to the extent of fees, the music venue noise, and has been consulted. It's just, requires me to stop voting. I think it's on.
Fantastic. Now, can I put the motion to vote? Those in favour, press 1. If not, 2. I now declare the motion carried. .6 Advice on the use of a streamlined planning process to remove heritage protection. Please welcome Michael Dundam and Adam McCutcheon to introduce the report.
Kia ora anō, councillors. This report responds to a notice of motion by the now Deputy Mayor, I think it was in August, relating to delisting of heritage buildings and structures, utilising the new SPP process. The advice from officers is that there might be limited benefit in utilising that tool, and we've instead suggested that we look to reform and prepare some consultation with affected landowners to understand what their thoughts might be on delisting, and then to return back to councillors with advice on that in the new year. I'll take the report as read and available for any questions. But actually, before I do that, just a note, paragraph 8 of the report, we mentioned that heritage may not be part of the new RM reform system. Obviously, we've learnt more about that this week, and we do know that heritage is part of the new system, although in a slightly different capacity. There will be a higher bar for listing heritage items, and significance will be determined by some yet to be provided national direction. So we will await that, and we will need to respond to that as part of moving towards the new system and implementing that. Kia ora.
Any questions? Councillor Calvert.
So last minute question, but I've just remembered trees. Often some have got heritage listing, not necessarily because of their nature, but just because they're been listed on the district plan. Where do they fit into this?
Through the chair, notable trees is the new term.
Oh, notable, sorry.
In the new plan that comes from central government.
Okay.
They aren't part of or able to be removed through this new streamlined planning process. It's unlikely, if council did want to amend that list, it would have to go through a plan change and again be subject to ministerial exemption. I learnt yesterday that Auckland Council had an exemption declined from the minister to add new trees. So that's the space in which notable trees are in at the moment.
So, because my question is about more, not about adding them, but excluding them from being notable. So how do we go about, is that part of this, or is this something separate?
Through the chair, that would be something separate that would be achievable through a new plan change process. So if we were directed to do that, we could begin background work. But again, any plan change that council wanted to notify would be subject to ministerial exemption.
Okay, all right, thank you.
I don't see any other questions, so that means they're a mover for the motion. Thank you, officers. And Deputy Mayor McNulty will move the motion.
Yeah, I'll try to be quick. We've had a lot of discussion today. When Michael and Adam came to me to tell me about this news, it was sort of like giving the news of, oh, we're going to have to put down your pet. I could, you could tell the anticipation, because we had the government literally changed a law off the back of the advocacy of myself and Mayor Whānau to allow an SPP process, and now the SPP process is not going to be sufficient. But we've worked through this and we have a strategy for moving forward. So I guess I've spoken with Minister Bishop, tested advice, and I believe we do have a alternative pathway forward that will be able to look at when the work that has instructed specifically under number 3 and 4 reports back to us, so that we are able to continue. The things, just reiterating, that are of concern that I will hope 3 and 4 will raise for us, they are heritage properties that have negative urban externalities. So I'm thinking things like the Adelaide Road. Heritage properties that stop the exercising of te roranga teratanga. So as Vicky Howell reminded me, that's the old army barracks in Mount Cook. We've gifted back land for a tiriti settlement, but then we've imposed a colonial vestige, a heritage designation on a building on that land, which means they cannot exercise the land rights that they are should be guaranteed under te tiriti. And private residences, where the imposition of heritage has resulted in an unwieldy cost around insurance and maintenance and resource consents. So I imagine we are going to get quite a list that comes back through that 3 and 4 process that we'll then be able to take to central government and say, this is where the heritage system is not working, where it is broken, and where changes are needed. And it will be a very timely thing in terms of the government's legislative passage. So whilst I was hoping we would be going down the road of the SPP and moving there and getting things done, that doesn't look the way for now, but I thank Michael and Adam for working so constructively with me, that we are able to do some work that is also preparatory for the new planning and environmental acts nonetheless. So this is work that needs to be done, but we can also use it more preemptively in advance of those legislative changes. Thank you.
Is there a seconder for the motion? Arubai, you have asked before, so you can second this one. Do you want to speak to?
I reserve my right, thanks.
Fantastic. Is there any debate? No. I now put the motion, which has been moved and seconded, to the vote. Press 1 for yes, 2 for no. I declare the motion carried. 2.7 decision register updates and upcoming reports. Officer Hudson.
Take it as read, councillors. Any questions?
Any question? Okay, mover for the motion, Councillor Compton, and seconder, Councillor Young. Do you want to speak to the motion? Any debate? Right of reply? Let's go to vote. I declare the motion carried. Councillors, thank you so much for constructive and robust discussion today. This is the second meeting of the City and Strategy meeting for the triennium and the last for the year. Until we see you next year, I wish you happy Christmas for those who celebrate, happy holiday for those who don't. And tomorrow is a birthday of Councillor Randall. We wish you happy birthday, Councillor. Now, let's conclude our meeting with Karakia. Unuhia, unuhia, unihea ki te urutapanui, ke awatia, ki mama, te nako, te tinana, te waro. E ti ara takatu, ko rea e rongo, whakaria ake ki runga, ke awatia, aira, kwa awatia.